So let's get started. So tonight's talk is going to be about the 21-day purification program. Have you guys done this before? Any of you done this before?
No.
Not with you.
Okay, awesome. But before you've done one before?
I've done multiple times some cleanses.
Excellent.
So
Excellent. Okay.
hopefully I get to be that kind of person too, where before I was like,
Right?
I wanted to do it and I stuck to it. So hopefully
Yes.
this will work.
And so that's the great thing about the 21-day program is that we can do it once or twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain patients of mine that I recommend that they do that. I recommend that they, if they work in a, like a garage, right, where they're exposed to a lot of petrochemicals and gasoline and oil and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
that I recommend that they do that twice a year because those toxins get stored in the body. And we're going to talk about some different examples of professions and people who have hobbies that could warrant a detox.
Oh yeah.
In general, we're going to be talking about everyday life things that what we need to detox from. So one of the reasons I picked this time of year is because it, like I said, it does give me permission to not go off track, and it prepares me for the new year. So come January 1st, I'm not preparing for a cleanse. I've already done my cleanse, and I can get on with the important things in life that I want to do. And so we're detoxing this year. I figure we've all been exposed to the fires and the toxins that are associated with burning forests and homes and cars and all the businesses, all the chemicals that were in the air. It's difficult. I don't think you can actually avoid the toxins that we've been exposed to this year with regard to the fires, because it was everywhere. The air quality was super poor. And even if you've got an air filtration system in your home, you're not able to filter out all of that because you have to go outside and, you know, all the stuff. So those types of chemicals, as we know, what the body does with those chemicals is it brings them in, and you breathe them in, you drink them, you eat them. All these chemicals that we're exposed to on a regular basis. And then the body has these filtration systems that it's supposed to be able to detox that stuff on a daily basis. But I think of us like this 55-gallon drum, right? When we're born, we're like a 55-gallon drum, and there are holes drilled in the bottom, and that's how the toxins and trash get out. But oftentimes when we get to our 40s, 50s, and 60s, the trash is coming in at a faster rate than the body can get rid of it.
Oh,
So
sure.
then it starts overflowing, right?
Yeah.
The drum is overflowing and the trash is just coming out as symptoms. Those symptoms can be like itchy skin, acne, rashes, constipation, all kinds of autoimmune conditions. So all kinds of things can happen when we are more toxic than we should be. So a regular detox is super helpful in my opinion. So there's 6 goals for the detox program. Number 1, we're going to learn about foods for good health. Number 2, we're going to remove bad fats and replace with good fats. So let's talk about, and you guys are going to get a copy of these notes.
Okay.
Yay! You don't have to write anything down. You're going to get a copy of my notes. So yeah, exactly. You can just pay attention.
Cool.
Have questions as I go along. You can
Right.
totally write down a question and or just, you know, raise your hand there, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Cool. Thank you.
Let's talk about good fats and bad fats for a minute, because
Yeah.
we went through the 80s. If you're old enough to have gone through the 80s,
Yes.
health consciously. I know you already called me old once today, Camilla.
What? Me? That was him. I lived through that too. I'm old.
So we went through a decade or more of that.
Yeah.
Fat was bad, right? If you remember Dr. McDougall, he was in the Bay Area. He was an MD who just really came out with this book and the whole 9 yards that fats were bad for us. And then a little bit later than that, Time Magazine came out with a cube of butter on, you know, a pound of butter on the front cover saying, are fats really that bad for us? So I think we've kind of come back around full circle where we understand that our brain is more than 60% fat. We need fats, especially cholesterol, as a precursor to our hormone production. So we need good fats. It's not the good fats that make us fat, and it's not the good fats that are bad for us, but it is the bad fats. So what are some examples of good fats?
Avocado.
Avocado,
Olive oil.
olive oil, excellent.
Olives. Oh,
Olives, yes.
Nuts, right?
Nuts and seeds, excellent sources. What about butter?
Butter.
Butter
It's
versus
delicious.
margarine, for sure. Butter versus margarine for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I can't believe it's not butter stuff is really bad for you.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
What about coconut oil?
Coconut oil.
Mhm.
That's not. Mhm.
Rapeseed oil.
Yep.
Most of the nut oils like walnut oil and those types of things, those are all really, really good for us too. Certain of them are to be heated up and certain of them are better left cold,
Fresh. Mhm.
right? And so for flaxseed, for example, I try to keep my flaxseed oil in the fridge because it's protected once it's in the seed. But if you're grinding flaxseed to put in something, you're going to want to try to grind it fresh or at least 1 or 2 days at a time only, and then put it in the fridge. So because fats go rancid really quick, right? And so I try to keep my nuts in the freezer. I don't keep them in the cupboard. So I keep them in the fridge or the freezer because they can also go rancid.
Oh,
So I just, it's just one of those things. If you buy nuts, that are dry roasted, you definitely don't want nuts that are in peanut oil. Because peanuts, and you shouldn't be eating peanuts either or consuming peanut oil because they tend to have aflatoxin, which is mold, and aflatoxins are bad for us. They can cause a lot of allergies and sensitivities.
Yeah.
And that goes for peanut butter as well then, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that goes for peanut butter as well. Another thing to avoid. Okay, so canola oil. So I stopped eating deep fried foods out of my own house because most deep fried foods in the restaurants are canola oil or vegetable oil.
Yeah.
And so it used to be in the olden days because I had a patient who would go and he would pick up the oil at the restaurants. And he said when he first started his job, they would go in and they would dump out the oil and it was a done deal. The restaurants would kind of clean out the things after they were done. Now, since the advent of genetically engineered fats and canola oil, when they fry that and get that to a really high temperature and they leave it in there for God knows how many days, now they've got this thick residue at the bottom of the deep fryers that they have to use solvents to clean out.
oh my gosh.
And it's so bad for you. So I swore off French fries 2 years ago.
Oh God.
And since then, I know I make them at home. I make them at home in an air fryer now, right? And so I still make them, but I make sure that the fat that I use is a good fat.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of you have to kind of figure out what 1 degree of change are you going to make when it comes to being healthier.
Right.
So there's an acronym that I found that's really cool, and it's called BACON, and it's about the good fats. So this is an easy way to remember that. Butter, avocado, coconut oil, olive oil, nuts and seeds,
Well,
Oh, nice.
and bacon.
Love
if you
it.
want, nitrate free,
Implement.
right? So it's an easy way to remember what the good fats are. Okay, so then number 3, change the meat you eat. So one of the things that I've come to appreciate is the importance of organic meat. So I grew up really poor. So we hunted most of our meat, right? We had venison and we had duck and we had goose, and those were the meats that we had.
right.
And we raised a cow, every year. And so that was the meat that we ate. But then as I got into my 20s, 30s, 40s, before I knew anything about nutrition, I was like, okay, well, meat is meat. But when you look into the research of it, it's really interesting that the ratios of omega-6s to omega-3s, and remember, omega-3s are super important for our brain. Omega-6s, somewhat important, but not as important, and can be pro-inflammatory if eaten to excess. So when you look at the fat content of grass-fed meat, which would be wild game and grass-fed beef, bison, when you look at the omega-6 to omega-3 ratios of organic, of grass-fed meat, the ratios of 6s is about 1 to 2 to 1 to 4. So it's 1,6 to 4. No, it's the opposite. Sorry. It's 1 to 4 omega-6s to omega-3s when we're talking about non-organic, non-grass-fed. But the ratio of 6s to 3s is 1 to 18 in grass-fed beef.
Wow.
It's a much better ratio. You've got more omega-3s in grass-fed because they're eating grass,
Yeah.
right? They're converting grass and wild food instead of corn and hay and alfalfa that's dried, right? So they've lost some of the nutrition when they're being fed in a commercial type of a setting.
Yeah.
And also remember the corn that they feed these animals, and all animal feed has corn in it, right? So we just got chickens, and I have to really search for a corn-free chicken feed.
Wow.
It's challenging. You can find it, but you're going to pay twice as much. But I don't want to eat corn via my eggs.
Yes.
And that's the challenge, right? You're eating corn, GMO corn, when you eat animals that have eaten corn. So that's that trickle down theory that we have to deal with, right? So
Yeah.
even though if you don't eat GMO corn, if you eat meat that has eaten corn, you're eating GMO corn. And that shows up on scans that we do in the office as glyphosate. Remember, glyphosate is Roundup. And so when you're wanting to avoid those types of toxins like Roundup in your food, you really have to pay attention to the quality of the meat that you're eating. So look for, if you can, as best as you can, want to find organic eggs. Free range is not enough because they don't have to qualify how long they've been outside. They can let them outside for 10 minutes and call them free range chickens.
Yep.
So find a farmer, get real good eggs if you can. And then the meat that you're eating, obviously, if you can get grass fed, you do that. If you can't, choose one thing that you're going to do that's grass fed and just go with that. The other thing is you don't want any farmed fish. So if you eat salmon, yep, you have to get wild caught if possible. And sometimes I went to the store and the only fresh salmon they had was frozen. They didn't have any fresh salmon that was not farmed. So I don't know if you've seen documentaries on farmed fish, but basically what they do is they grow these fish in these giant vats. And some of them will be like in seawater, like they're supposed to be, or brackish water for the salmon, right? But they're so overcrowded and they're paid by the pound. So if they're paid by the pound, what's their goal? Get them big as fast as they can. So what's going to happen is they're going to give them growth hormone, antibiotics, because they're going to be not in a healthy environment, antiparasitics, and we consume that if you're eating farmed fish. So tilapia is one of the worst. You have to be careful not to eat tilapia anymore because it's all farmed. And then the salmon, if it's not pink, you can pretty much guarantee it's farmed.
Right.
So because it has much lighter color when you put them side by side.
Right.
So you just have to be cautious with that. Okay, replace or reduce refined sugar in your diet.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I have a question. I noticed that in some of your recipes you use bacon. How do you feel about grass-fed bacon?
You know, if you could get it, it's awesome. But the one thing I do caution my patients about is that it's more about the processing of it also, is that when they cure it, they're using nitrates to cure the bacon.
Oh, so if it's called non-cured,
Yes.
it's okay?
Yeah, if it's uncured,
Uncured is
that's a
okay.
better choice. Uncured, they're using celery salt
Okay.
to cure it instead of nitrates. And the nitrates cause intestinal cancer.
So it'd be uncured grass-fed bacon, which would be okay.
Ideal.
I don't think it's going to be, I don't think they can only eat bacon, honestly. I mean, they eat everything. I mean, corn. I think they eat everything, but it would be
the pigs. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes. So uncured is what we're going for.
Okay.
The pork.
Okay. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Okay, so let's get back to sugars for a little bit, because sugar is one of those things that is pretty much in everything. And most of our food turns into glucose, right? To be used as fuel in the body. So we want to try to minimize our refined sugars. And when I say that, what I mean is white sugar, right? So last night I made a pumpkin cake, and I used a gluten-free flour, and I used monk fruit as my sweetener. And I always reduce my sugars by about 25% anyway, because I try not to have things as sweet, because it is a taste that you acquire on your tongue. And so if the less sugar that you consume, the less sugar that you need to get that satisfaction of having something sweet.
I learned that too.
And it turned out really, really well. It turned out really well. I was super surprised. And so monk fruit is something you can do 1-to-1 with refined sugar in your recipes. So I encourage you, when you're doing your Thanksgiving recipes this year, try some monk fruit. It does not have a pancreatic response, so it's not going to stimulate that insulin output that we would get with sugar. And also not as inflammatory as sugar. That's the other thing why we want to avoid sugar, is because sugar is inflammatory. And 1 in 3 adults is a pre-diabetic or diabetic. So we just don't want to be in that statistic.
Oh, can I ask you a question? What about using dates, dried dates as a sugar replacement? Is that just as good as the monk fruit?
Yes, I would say it does elicit a pancreatic response, though, just like fruit does.
Okay.
So in moderation, though, I mean, if you're using dates as opposed to refined sugar, that's a definite plus.
Okay.
For sure. So like when I make oatmeal, if I'm going to make oatmeal, I'll chop up the dates and I'll put them in as I'm cooking the oatmeal. So then there's no sweetener required.
Right.
Also in your smoothies, if you feel like your smoothie needs to be a little bit sweeter, I encourage you to put a date in the blender, because it's one of those things where you can get a little bit of sweet. And when you get used to the sweetness of dates versus refined sugar, it's very different and unique and tastes really good. But we're so accustomed to refined sugar, you know, if it doesn't have that, you know, hit you in the face kind of sweetness, we say it's not good enough. So it's nice to kind of wean yourself off of that refined sugar habit. So things that you're going to not want to put in are artificial sweeteners. So you have to look at this in everything. If you're using any foods that are packaged, you have to look for, even in bread. Did you know that there's sucralose and Splenda in bread? They put it in everything. It's in baby food. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. I won't get into the corruption with artificial sweeteners, but there's a lot of it. We want to avoid things like Splenda, acesulfame potassium, NutraSweet. There's a new name out for Splenda because Splenda got a bad rap in the research. So they've renamed it to something else. So you just have to be careful of anything that says 0 calories and it tastes sweet. Be cautious. But instead you can use stevia. Stevia comes from a plant and it's super, super sweet. If you've tried stevia and not liked it in the past, try a liquid form.
That's
Because
right.
it doesn't use the stems and it's not as bitter. And then again, you use very, very, very little. It's 20 times sweeter than sugar. So you need very, very little amount. Monk fruit is a good one. Raw honey is a good substitute for refined sugar, but it should be raw. So you have to, and try to get local, because then you get the benefits of local immunities to pollens and allergens as well. And then you can also, if you must have cane sugar, make sure it's not sugar beets, but organic cane sugar is another way that you can use sweeteners, but that I would say that's in moderation, right? That's in moderation. On the 21-day protocol, we're not doing any sugars except for dates, maybe a little bit of monk fruit and some stevia. Okay, but I'm talking about life in general. Replace grains with pseudo grains. Now, this is a big subject, right? Grains are, what are grains?
Rice.
Rice,
oatmeal, maybe, I don't know, oats.
Oats, wheat,
Wheat,
Yeah,
uh,
wheat's a biggie.
Like wood.
barley, rye.
Barley, rye, corn.
What was
Corn
the
is a grain. Everybody thinks corn is a vegetable, but it is not. It's a grain. So what we're going to use instead, what we want to try to replace in our diets instead would be things like quinoa, wild rice. Wild rice is actually a grass. So if you're converting over from rice, that might be a way for you to kind of make the transition, is use brown rice and a wild rice mix is a very nice way to kind of ease away from white rice if that's been your go-to. And then transitioning all the way over to wild rice and a quinoa mix is even better because those are kind of a seed and a grass. So again, it does not elicit a pancreatic response. So we're not getting insulin produced when we're eating those types of foods. Millet. Millet is one of those weird grains. Some people like it, most people hate it.
But you can have that. You can have millet. Is it considered pseudo?
It is a pseudo.
And what about buckwheat?
Buckwheat is a grain. Buckwheat is gluten-free, but still a grain.
Oh, okay.
So when we get off of cleanse, if you're going to do cleanse, when we get off of the cleanse, then there's no problem with doing buckwheat. I like it because it's a gluten-free.
Yeah.
And it's super good for microcirculation. It's really good for your arteries and veins. So I like buckwheat for that reason. And it also cleans out your arteries and it's anti-cholesterol.
Oh.
So it has lots of good properties to it. I have a killer recipe for buckwheat chocolate chip cookies.
What?
Number 6, drink more water. So if you're going to do cleanse, super important that you drink enough water to take the trash out, because we're going to be encouraging the liver and the kidneys to dump out the trash, and we're going to be encouraging the fat to convert its trash into a water-soluble trash, which means water has to be taken to take the trash out, because most toxins have been converted into a fat-soluble trash, so it can be taken out of the bloodstream. So remember that 55-gallon drum I was talking about?
Yeah.
yeah,
If it's overflowing, the body's job is to take some of that overflow and see what it can do about it. So it's going to go say, okay, we're overflowing. I'm going to go grab that trash. I'm going to convert it into a fat-soluble trash. I'm going to go chuck it into a fat cell. So it gets it out of circulation, which the body is happy about. The brain is like going, thank goodness, someone took care of that trash. But now when we want to become toxin-free or have less of a toxic load, now the liver is responsible for, if the fat's going to release it, because we're going to be eating a lot leaner and cleaner, if the fat's going to release it, or even if you start exercising, right? The fat's going, okay, I want it. I'd like to get rid of some of this trash that's stored inside here in this fat cell, but the liver's not ready for me to do that. So I'm going to hang on to it. So it's why we can't lose weight when we have a toxic liver and kidneys, because our weight is just, we have to hang on to it because we're not ready to get rid of the trash. So one of the things I want you to also consider, if you're thinking about doing a cleanse, is I want you to consider your exposure on a daily level, on a daily basis of chemicals and toxins. Where do you get yours? So everyone's unique according to their living and working environment. But I made a list of some of the ways that you get chemicals before you even leave your house. So bath soap, body wash, shampoo, cream rinse, lotion, makeup, hairspray, hair products, perfumes, laundry detergent, because you put on clothes that were laundered, dryer sheets, dry cleaning if you went to the dry cleaners and are putting on a dry cleaning shirt, food that you ate that may not be clean, coffee, beverages, gasoline, so you have to stop and get gas on your way to work, right? EMFs, which is electromagnetic fields. So that's a type of toxicity that the body has. It responds to electromagnetic fields, right? Xenoestrogens and hormone disruptors, cleaning supplies, tattoos, your work environment, fertilizers, pesticides, plastics, and that's just the chemical components, right? Now we get to the water that we drink. If you've got city and town water, sometimes they've gone through a water filtration system where they use a lot of chlorine and chemicals to, you know, detoxify your water and then feed it back to you. And there's no way that you can get the medications that are flushed into the toilet system and, you know, overflowing people's bodies, the painkillers and all that stuff that goes into water filtration plants. They can't get that out. So I encourage people to have their own filtration system in their home, whether it be an on-the-counter AquaTrue, which is kind of my favorite. It's just like a 4-filter thing that sits on the counter. You probably go through, I don't know, 4 gallons of water a day through that thing. But they last a long time. I've been really happy with it, and you don't have to hook it up underneath your counter. But if you've got a whole house filtration system, that's excellent as well. Those aerosolized sanitizers. So, you know, when you go into a public bathroom and they've got those sprays that spray the stinky stuff out into the bathrooms.
Yeah.
Those are all chemicals. Those are all chemicals, and those are hormone disruptors. Anything with a fragrance is a hormone disruptor. So we want to minimize the fragrance that we're exposed to unless it's from an essential oil, right? If it's from an essential oil, then that's fine. The body knows what to do with that. Okay, so we talked about what does the body do with that excess waste? Turns it into fat soluble trash, stores it in your fat cells, until it can be reconverted. So let's talk about some of the benefits of a cleanse. So you guys all, do you have cars? Everybody here has a car?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So in your car, they have fuel filters, air filters, and what other kind of filters are in there?
Cabin
Oil
filter.
filter, an oil filter, right?
Yeah.
All those are filters. They're filtering all the stuff that goes through the engine to keep it running smooth, right? Because there are pollutants and toxins and things that are in our fuel, especially, you know, you never get gas on a day that they're refilling the tanks, right? Exactly. You always go to another gas station if that's what's happening, because they're dumping that gas in at a very rapid speed, and any sediment that's settled in the bottom is now all through the gasoline. And so they're not filtering the gas before it goes into your car. That's your fuel filter's job. But we change those filters on a regular basis. Every 5,000 or 10,000 miles, those filters get changed.
Yeah.
And we throw those away, and then we get new ones. But our body's filters, we don't do that. We're not changing our liver. We're not changing out our kidneys. We're not changing out our lungs. And so those filters need cleaned. We don't have replacement parts. We're stuck with the ones we were given.
Yeah.
And they're going to last us about 100 years. So in order for them to last 100 years, they need to be cleaned. And so rarely does that happen without some sort of a system like this, where we're going through and trying to get actually a very systematic detoxification protocol where we're working on our liver and working on our kidneys. It's almost impossible to eat that concentration of food that you would need to eat on a consistent basis. Now, if you ate things like beets, buckwheat, and, you know, collard greens and those types of food, Spanish black radish, if you could eat those types of foods on a regular basis and you did that, there probably wouldn't be as much of a need for a detox. But I know I don't get a lot of those foods in my daily life. It's just, I don't have that ability. So it's why I detox twice a year. So we get to clean our filters. We get to give our pancreas a vacation. When was the last time you guys gave your pancreas a vacation? Where you had actually no alcohol, no sugar, for a 21-day period. It's amazing. Your pancreas is like going, oh, it's so nice to have a vacation. And because 1 in 3 of us is a diabetic or a diabetic, it's super important. So there was a study done that showed that for if you're fasting blood sugar is over 100, your hippocampus, where we store memory, is actually shrinking. If your average blood sugar is over 100. Most of my patients who come to see me with their blood work, they're over 100.
Wow.
And so their hippocampus is where we store memory. So they're building memory centers like on every corner in Folsom. right? There's memory care centers everywhere. They're banking on us not taking care of ourselves. They're banking on us having blood sugar higher than 100 on a fasting blood sugar test. So we really have to take care of ourselves, and we have to give our pancreas a rest so that we're not consuming as much sugar and we don't need it as much as we do. The brain actually shrinks 4% for every decade that you have high blood sugar. So some of my patients have been on metformin and blood sugar medication for decades. If they've been on that stuff and they've had high blood sugar for 30 years, their brain is 12% smaller than it used to be. 12%.
Amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And incredible. And it's also a high risk for dementia, right? Not only a memory care center, but dementia, which is astronomical these days.
Mhm.
So the other thing about eating good fats I didn't mention was it prevents you from having to go on a statin. And statins also adversely affect the brain. So we want to try to avoid statins because it reduces our cholesterol to the point where we no longer, I mean, they want cholesterol. If you're a diabetic, they want your cholesterol under 100. And a good range for cholesterol is 180 to 220. So they really, really are caught. My opinion is that when you're on a statin and you're a diabetic, just write the check to the dementia center because that's where you're going to go. Make sure you have that long-term care insurance. I'm banking that I'm going to take care of myself. I don't believe in long-term care insurance because I'm going to spend that money on eating good quality food now so that I don't get demented when I'm 80.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what we need to become more responsible and take care of ourselves now and not wait for later. Okay, so we reduce oxidative damage by reducing our chemical exposure when we're paying more attention to what we're eating and putting in our body and on our body. We reduce our risk of cancer caused by chemical exposure. This is a rather daunting statistic. 1,806,000 expected new cases of cancer in the United States in the year 2020.
Oh my gosh.
1,806,000 new cases. These aren't the recurring ones. These are new. And 606,000 deaths projected in 2020 due to cancer. Now we know most cancers aren't chemically related, right? They're chemical exposures that the body can't handle. So it causes these rogue cells. And then the liver is supposed to get rid of these toxins. So when we detox, it's super important because we're reducing our risk of these things. I don't see them taking sugar off the shelves or any of that stuff instead of, locking us up in our homes.
Right? Huh.
We're not talking like that.
Okay.
We also reduce the risk of autoimmune challenges when we have a healthy gut. Okay. We improve our potential for good sleep when we're eating clean, right? Super important. We have the possibility of weight loss. So the average person on a cleanse loses about 8 pounds. And depending on when you're starting, some people will lose more, some people will lose less. If you don't need to lose weight, you won't, right? Because you're going to eat enough food that you're not going to be starving. This is not a go hungry kind of a cleanse. This is a eat cleaner kind of a cleanse. And then also one of the other benefits is we get to develop new habits. So we get to have new eating habits, new sleeping habits. I always encourage people to try to get their 7 to 8 hours of sleep when they're on cleanse, because during rest is when we clean. That's when the body gets to detox, the brain especially. So when you're asleep, your brain actually shrinks about 40%. And it allows glymph, which is like lymphatic fluid for the brain. It allows glymph to go in and clean out all the nooks and crannies and take out all the trash. Because it can't do it during the day, we're using our brains. So at night when we're resting is when that happens. So if you're one of those people who's not getting adequate rest, you're only getting 5 or 6 hours of sleep, or it's interrupted, that's really bad for your brain. So I want to encourage you to get enough sleep when you're on cleanse, and then that can help create a better habit. If you're working during the day, the best time to try to go to sleep is between 10 and 11 p.m. It's when melatonin is at its best, cortisol is kind of at its low. So that's the best time to try to go to sleep. If you get past that, sometimes you can recreate this like second surge of cortisol, and you can kind of get into the 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock time that you're going to sleep, which isn't so great. If you're a night shift worker, then you don't have any choice. You have to try to get your 7 hours of sleep during the day, but try to make it uninterrupted. I know some people will try to get like a 4-hour chunk and then wake up and then have a bite to eat and then try to get a little nap later. It's not as good for the brain. But naps are also not out of the question. If you don't get adequate sleep, the best time to nap is between 12 and 2, 12 noon and 2 p.m. so that you don't disrupt your evening sleep. So that's a good time to even if you just lay horizontal, right? You don't have to sleep, but if you lay horizontal, you're resting your adrenal glands, because your adrenal glands regulate blood pressure, and they're kind of like the heart, they're always kind of working. But when you lay down, the adrenals get a little bit of a vacation. Okay, so things that we will or may eat on the 21-day purification. Protein, super important. Let's talk about sources of protein. What kind of protein can we eat?
Animal protein, animal product.
Fish,
Poultry.
Eggs.
No nuts.
No,
Nuts are not on, seeds are. You can eat seeds, but no nuts. Because the other thing we're doing, which is really interesting on protocol, is we're removing some foods that may be difficult to digest or may have a high allergen thing. So if you feel like you might have a sensitivity to eggs, I don't want you to eat them on purification.
Broccoli.
Right? Broccoli, no. Broccoli's going to fall under vegetables.
Okay.
It does have protein. It does have protein, but we're not going to count it as a protein.
Perfect. Any protein powders, like protein shakes?
We are going to have shakes, yes. So we're going to have 2 shakes a day. And then we're going to have a meal, which would include a lean protein. So we can have fish, we can have chicken, we can have beef, we can have bison. If you hunt, you can have venison, duck, so those are the wild animals are also included in the protein as well.
Is tuna included? Sorry.
Tuna is included if it's wild caught, yes. And then lentils are also available. So lentils are, we are not eating beans, but we are eating lentils, okay? And quinoa is a pseudo grain, and it is also high in protein. And lentils, you can have green, red, brown, or yellow. It doesn't really matter on the lentils. And if you've not ever had lentils, they're really, really tasty. So cook up a pot of lentil soup, and you can add different vegetables to it each day to kind of change it up.
I have read so much about lentils being hard on the liver. Is that inadequate reading?
Well, I think it depends on who you read, honestly. But people have been eating lentils for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So I think that we're not eating them every day, right? A serving size is going to be, if you're going to make a soup, it would be like a cup. And if you're going to eat lentils by themselves, if you're going to put them on a salad or something, it would be a half a cup as a serving.
Okay.
So, I think that sometimes people can get into, like as a vegetarian, they can eat the same foods over and over and over again. And I think that might be
the problem. Okay.
And I try to tell people, you need to eat a variety of foods.
Right.
Rotate. It's very important to eat a variety of foods. Eat the rainbow, and you just have to have all the nutrients that nature has provided for us.
Yeah.
The body needs them all. Quinoa and wild rice. We will be eating quinoa and wild rice. Fruit in the form of berries. Okay, so if you're going to eat a fruit, I would like it to be berries. Berries are super good for your microcirculation. They're very low stress on the pancreas. And because we're giving our pancreas a little vacation, You know, I would like you to expand your take of berries. You can do frozen berries if there's no fresh in your area. So frozen organic berries, and you can even take them and put them into a blender with a little bit of water and make yourself a sorbet with a little, you know, if you're just, you know, needing a dessert, you can do all kinds of things with them. One of my patients, she took a chocolate stevia and put a couple of drops on a plate. And then she took some strawberries and she cut them in half and rubbed them into the chocolate stevia and had like chocolate covered strawberries. I thought that was remarkable. I was like, that's really getting creative.
Oh, desperate.
Yes, we're desperate.
Desperate for chocolate.
I think it was the latter.
You get
That's
creative.
me. And creative. That's
Yes.
awesome.
So seeds we can eat, remember? So don't forget pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, sunflower seeds, flax seeds, and hemp seeds. So those are all seeds that we can eat. Hemp is also really good in protein.
That's right. Yeah.
Water and herbal tea will kind of be our beverages. Remember, herbal tea counts as part of your water. Coconut flour is actually permitted as well. So, and coconut milk. So if you're looking to mix something into your smoothie, I generally use water, but you can use coconut water, coconut milk, and coconut water, remember, is really high in minerals, especially potassium. So you can use coconut milk, you can use hemp milk, you can use coconut water, but no almond milk, no soy, and no cow, because we're not doing dairy. Okay. But the coconut, remember, you can use coconut milk and chia seeds to make a dessert for yourself, like a chia seed pudding. Exactly. You can make a chia seed pudding. And so it doesn't mean when we're doing a cleanse that it has to be torture, preferably not torture.
Thank you.
Preferably something that you are going to enjoy and look forward to doing again.
Right.
Things that we will avoid. So these are the things that we'll be avoiding. Grains, caffeine. Now, there's no coffee police, right? If it means you're not going to do it, if you have to have a cup of coffee, have your cup of coffee. But there's a but. I would like it to be organic, because our goal is to have chemical-free 3 weeks, right? So if you don't currently, and if a coffee drinker and you drink coffee every day, I would encourage you to find an organic coffee, because it's something that you do every day, right? If it's an occasional thing, I don't really care. But if it's something you do every single day and you're chemically loading yourself every single day, because coffee's a cash crop, they spray it, right?
Yeah.
So, and they put all kinds of things on it. So I think it's better if you just get an organic cup of coffee, if that's what you have to have. But I would encourage you also, if you're a 2-cup-a-day person, to try some green tea for your second cup. Green tea is medicinal. It's excellent for your microcirculation. It's antioxidants, good for your brain, keeps your platelets from sticking together. So it's really good for you. We're not going to be having any nuts, sugar, we talked about, processed foods. So if it comes in a box, you're probably not going to be eating it on your 21-day cleanse. Okay, so we're looking at things that God made,
Yes.
basically. Grown in nature, yes. And we're probably not going to be drinking any alcohol either. Now, since the cleanse is between Thanksgiving and Christmas, let's say that there's a party that, I mean, we're discouraged from going to parties, but let's say you're going to a party and you know you're going to want to have a glass of wine, right? Just don't eat any fruit that day, right? Reduce the load on your pancreas. Have your glass of wine or whatever it is you're going to do, but you know, you're only going to do it that one day for the party. It's not, I don't want it to be the factor of, oh, I'm going to have a party in the middle of my 21-day cleanse, so I'm not going to do my cleanse. I don't think that's the goal that we're after here. We're after, how can we benefit from this the best? So now I want to talk about intermittent fasting. Have any of you done any intermittent fasting?
Yep.
Okay. How about you, Cindy?
Yes,
Okay, good.
short period.
Short periods. Okay.
Yeah.
So an intermittent fast, from what I perceive an intermittent fast, I think of it like time restricted eating.
Right.
Right. So we're going to eat from, and if you've never done it before and you're not comfortable with it, then just do a 12-hour fast from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. or 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So no calories. You can have water, of course, but no calories for a 12-hour fast. Okay, if you've never done it before. If you're feeling like you want to do a little bit of weight loss, or you'd like to upregulate your immune system, because that's the beauty of intermittent fasting, it has many benefits. They've been doing this over in Russia for a long, long time. They do time restricted eating for cancer patients over there. They've been doing it for decades, and it's very effective because it brings on a ketotic state, right? You're in ketosis when you're intermittent fasting. And so that's one of the benefits also is if we want to detox our fat cells, how do we get to that place if we're constantly eating? We don't. So I like to do, when I'm on cleanse, I like to do a 14 to 16 hour intermittent fast.
Okay.
So I will stop eating at 8 p.m. because I work until 6:30. So I have to eat a little bit later than I would like to. And then I don't eat again until noon. So, but you can do something in between that, right? You can go 8 p.m. until 9 or 10 and then have your first shake at that time or have your breakfast. And we'll talk about some different schedules about how to do the cleanse. But intermittent fasting does many, many things for us. And I think that, so it helps with pancreatic and blood sugar control. It helps with immune system upregulation. It changes poor eating habits and snacking habits. You know, eating snacks when we shouldn't be. Our digestion is the slowest between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. Not the best time to eat. But it's when a lot of people do their snacking, right? And so we want to try to avoid that. Less grazing, more focused meal times, and consciously nourishing our body and mind. I think that's really what I want to encourage us to do is when you're on a cleanse like this, I want you to get a better relationship with your food. I had a patient this evening tell me, well, I don't really eat. I eat to live, not live to eat. And so she eats the same thing every single day. And I'm like, okay, well, that's just not healthy for you though. You have to have a variety of foods, and she doesn't eat any vegetables. I'm like, okay, so your goal this month is to add, what's a vegetable you like? She says carrots. I said, okay, your goal this week is to add carrots 3 or 4 days a week. And I mean, it's at least it's adding another food into her diet, right? So I want you to think about your relationship with food. And I want you to be looking for 3 things in every meal: a protein, a good fat, and a vegetable. In your smoothies, you'll be getting the protein and the vegetable. You're going to need to add a tablespoon of good fat. And that can be avocado oil, it can be coconut oil, it can be ghee. I don't care what avocado itself, I don't care what it is, but we need a good fat there. And then in your meal, then you're going to make sure that you've got a protein, a vegetable, and a good fat. Anything else is superfluous. So if you wanted to add brown rice, I would be okay with that. It's just not in the required section, right? But if you feel like I need a carb, I'm going to die, then you pick from the you pick from the ones that are appropriate. So we have several choices for intermittent fasting: a 12, a 14, and a 16-hour fast. And we talked about all of what those look like. But in your notes that you're going to get, all those options are listed there. Oh, if you've not intermittent fasted before and you want to give it a try, you can just do it for 2 or 3 days out of the week, right? So maybe you pick a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday that you're going to intermittent fast for 12 hours or 14 hours, or 6. It doesn't have to be every day, right? You can pick, okay, on Monday, I'm going to not eat breakfast. I'm just going to go straight till noon. And then you see how it feels. If you're like going, okay, well, I can eat a little bit bigger dinner, or if it's an 8 o'clock dinner night, that's the perfect time to intermittent fast the next morning, right? Because you've already eaten dinner a little bit later than you would. Your body's going to carry that over to where, and if you don't make it till noon, have a shake at 11. again, there's no food police going to tell you when you have to eat. You have to listen to your body and see how it feels. But I want you to experience a little bit of hunger. Right? We're in a society where we do not experience hunger.
Right.
It's good for the body to get to that place where we are like, every time I have a little, urge to eat, I don't have to go and fill that urge.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
I do typically do the 14 to 15 hour fast every day.
Mhm.
But I do drink my coffee at 7 in the morning and then wait until 11 to have my smoothie.
Okay.
Is it okay to have the coffee, the 1 cup of coffee on an empty stomach?
What's your
Or is
coffee?
that
What's in it?
nothing?
Nothing's in it. Yeah. So if you're drinking a non-caloric beverage, it's the same as fasting.
Oh, okay. I wasn't
Okay.
sure if the caffeine in the coffee was not good in your
No, you're
system.
fine.
Okay.
You're fine. No. So if you don't put, half and half or something like that in your, or coconut cream or something like that in your coffee, you're fine.
Okay.
Okay. Because what we want is we just want the body to not go into storage mode. We want it to get into that ketotic state a little bit because it's good for us. It's good for our brain. The brain thrives on ketones actually. And so if I have a patient who's I have a little 10-year-old who's a epileptic. And so I put her on a very strict keto diet. She hasn't had a seizure in over a year. And her medical doctors are just blown away. They didn't think she could do it, but her mom is a trooper. And so now after we've got out of that state, she was in ketosis for so long, they think her brain actually repaired itself even after having brain surgery at the age of 3.
Wow.
So it's super, super cool.
Bravo, doctor.
Mhm.
Well, it was her mom who did all the hard work.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, it was super, super insane. She even measured the carbohydrates in her supplements.
Wow.
It was insane. But I give her all the credit. Okay, so now here's what a day in the life of your 21-day purification is going to look like. So here's what's going to happen. You can use any dairy or nut-free beverage to mix your shakes in. So coconut milk, coconut water, hemp milk, water. You can get creative. You can add options like cinnamon. And what's cinnamon good for?
Anti-inflammatory.
Yes, and
Something with mold. I don't remember what.
blood sugar regulation.
Oh yeah, that.
Blood sugar regulation. So it's going to help when you put cinnamon in your shake. It doesn't have to be a ton, but if you put some cinnamon in your shake, it's going to manage your blood sugar. So it's going like this through the day instead of these giant ups and downs, right? So when we have better blood sugar regulation, we have better energy. Also, we don't have the crashes after our meals.
So would you recommend like maybe just a 1/4 teaspoon or just a sprinkle from how much would you recommend?
Go for a half a teaspoon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go for a half a teaspoon. If it's too much for you, then tone it down.
She really likes her cinnamon.
I do. I put cinnamon in everything.
Oh.
So yeah, but you can also put flaxseed in your shake if you're going to use a blender. So I don't tend to blend my shakes. I tend to shake my shakes, right? And so if you're a blender person, you have a little bit more freedom because you can put your flaxseed in there. You can put your chia seed. Well, you can shake a chia seed shake also. You can put your berries in there. So depending on if you're a shaker person, or a blending person. You can put cocoa powder in there because cocoa powder, remember, is medicinal in its full cocoa powder form. So it's excellent for microcirculation and blood pressure. You can put pumpkin. It's pumpkin season. So you could put a couple tablespoons of pumpkin in your smoothie and make it a pumpkin smoothie. You could put ginger. Ginger is also another excellent microcirculation thing that you can throw in there. It's a little hot and spicy, so go moderate on the ginger unless you really love it. Mint is another thing that you can put in there. If you've got a good clean source of mint, or you can get mint leaves and just throw a couple mint leaves in there if you like that. So there is, you're going to be getting a booklet that looks like this.
Oh,
And so this is going to give you an opportunity to keep track of what you're eating each day. There's a 21-day, there's like a daily intake journal. So there's like a journal. We're going to keep track of, you guys see that?
yes.
Okay, so there's a journal where you're going to keep track of what you eat, how you feel. And so what will happen is when you put something in your diet and you're logging how you feel when you eat it, you're going to kind of say, oh, I was super tired this day. What did I eat that might have contributed to that? So when I talk about getting a good relationship with your food, it's because when you get a better relationship with your food, you're actually paying attention to what you eat and how you feel afterwards.
Mhm.
So it's super great. And then there's also some recipes in the back of things that you can, different ways that you can make your shakes. I mean, you can be super creative. If you're a canner and you've got peaches in the freezer or, any kind of fruit, you can throw stuff in there that make sure you count that as your fruit for the day. But there's endless ways that you can make shakes. Okay, what's next? Oh, so here's what day 1 through 7 is going to look like. Day 1 through 7, you're going to have your 2 paleo type meals and 2 shakes with 1 tablespoon of whole food fiber. So your shakes come like this, and there's several different kinds. You can have chocolate, vanilla, you can have dairy-free. So there's lots of different options for that if you're a dairy-free person. These are whey protein, but the whey is non-denatured. So it has the enzymes in it, but if you're a dairy-free person, we do have dairy-free options. So so there's also a vanilla and a chocolate and a plain. So kind of depends on where you want to go with that. You will be putting, I won't hold up the whole food fiber because it's holding up the flashlight. But you'll be putting a tablespoon of whole food fiber because I don't know any of us that gets enough fiber in our diet. So you'll be putting a tablespoon of whole food fiber like this. It comes with a tablespoon already in it. And this comes from carrots and beets, the fiber. And it also has a bit of pectin in it because pectin is binding to trash in the gut. And so you'll be putting a tablespoon of that in your shake. And you'll be taking 7 of these capsules of SP Cleanse, 7 capsules 3 times a day for the first week. So there are 20 different botanicals in there that are going to clean your liver, your lymph, your kidneys, your gut. And when you're taking 21 of them a day, you're going to be peeing a lot. There's juniper berries in there. There's Spanish black radish in there. There's all kinds of things in there. Milk thistle and all kinds of stuff. And so we're encouraging that first week is like really heavy duty cleaning those filters. And then there's also in your shakes, because the shakes are a meal replacement, then there's vegetables in there as well. So you can either, depending on how you want to do it, you can do your 2 meals and then put your 2 shakes kind of in between. You can have a snack if you need one. And you're going to take your SP Cleanse capsules 3 times a day. Minimum is a 12-hour fast, but you can intermittent fast if you want to, up to 16 hours, because we still have to get all of our calories in. So on days 1 through 7, another option is, so this is kind of a beginner. If you've never done a cleanse before and you really want to just kind of get your feet wet and do that, you would have 2 meals and 2 shakes a day. On days 8 through 21, everything kind of stays the same, except for we change our detox product to SP Green Food. So this becomes 5 capsules 3 times a day. So we get to take less capsules. And then that would still be our 12. And I would encourage you, the last part, to kind of stretch your fast out from 12 to maybe 13 or 14 hours if you've never done that before. Then we have the advanced program. So this is for people who've cleansed before and kind of are just looking for their annual detox program because they've done it before. Days 1 through 7 for the advanced detoxer will basically be 1 to 2 paleo meals. So it could be, so what I do is I do 2 shakes, a paleo meal, and a snack if I need it. So that's kind of how I jump right into my cleanse that way. I make sure I get all my protein in though. 60 grams per day is minimum on protein. Okay, 1 egg is 7 grams of protein. 1 ounce of meat is 7 grams of protein. So you have to figure that out when you figure out your protein. And I'm happy to help you with that if you need help. So, and then also for the advanced cleanser, we're going to do 14 to 16 hour fast between 8 p.m. and 10 or 8 p.m. and noon. So let's discuss what a paleo meal is. How many of you have experience with paleo eating or a paleo diet? Everybody, okay. So basically what a paleo meal looks like: protein, veggies. When we're looking for 3 cups of vegetables a day, okay? 3 cups of vegetables a day during detox. And a good fat. We talked about what good fats are, and a fruit. So fruit in moderation, berries is the #1 choice. And then quinoa and wild rice are options, not paleo, but they're optional. If you feel like you need it, for sure do it. And they're a ½ cup serving per day. So that's basically what a paleo meal is. Let's talk about some questions now. Any questions about, yes?
I just had a question about the cocoa powder. Do you recommend, should it be like the darkest? Is it the grade? I forget what the grade is, but I know there's different cocoa powders that you can get. So which one would you recommend?
Like organic cacao, yeah.
Cacao, just like
Darker the better. Darker, and make sure there's no sugar in it.
Perfect.
So a couple different options. If you're doing the cleanse and you're doing SP complete, it has no flavor in it at all and no sweetener in it at all. It's just vegetables and protein. You have more flexibility in that because you can add your fruit to it. You can add your cocoa powder to it. You can, not have any predetermined flavor to it if you want.
It's not a shaker version though. You have to blend those.
Yeah, on the SP complete, you got to blend it. The chocolate and the vanilla, however, you can just shaker, right? So if you're a person who's going to work, and which was what I do, I put my protein powder in the bottom. I just bring it in my shaker bottle, and I just add the water to it. Oh, there goes the phone. I just add my water to it once I get here at lunchtime. And so what I do, everybody thinks I'm a little crazy, but I put this much water in the bottom. Then I put in my protein powders and I shake it up with cold water, and then I add the rest hot water. So I've got hot chocolate.
There you go.
Yeah, it's the bomb. I add my tablespoon of coconut oil or avocado oil, and it's how I get through the 21-day cleanse. I do that pretty much through the winter though. And then,
And your whole food fiber.
and then the whole food fiber, yes. I usually put 2 tablespoons of whole food fiber in mine because I need more fiber in my life. And so there's a little bit of flexibility to how you do this program, right? So you might find that you want to break your fast with lunch, right? You're like, I need a real meal when I've been fasting for that long. So you might find that your real meal is lunch. So that would include maybe a grass-fed hamburger patty, maybe, some sauteed vegetables that you've sauteed in a good fat, and maybe a small salad, right? With some avocado in there. And then for maybe a 2 or 3 o'clock snack, you have one of your shakes. And then for dinner, you have a smaller meal and another shake. So that's how some people will do it. Other people will say, no, I can just do a shake at lunch, and I can do a snack in the mid-afternoon, and then I can do a shake a little bit later, and then I can do my dinner. So it's important to get the shakes in because they're part of the detox process. So you want to make sure you get those 2 shakes in. Did I cover everything?
If they get the program, they also get the cookbook, the 21-day.
Oh, we don't have those. They don't make
A
them.
digital version.
Oh, a digital version. There you go. So Yes, there's a digital version of, I brought one. Yes, in my bag. Right there by the- So there's a digital version of this cookbook, which is amazing. And it has tons of recipes in it and lots of information. A lot of the information we talked about tonight is in this book. So you get a digital version of that cookbook that you can use and refer to. But you will get this with your protocol so you can keep track of your food log. And there's a lot of good information in here as well. And it talks a little bit about post-purification. What do you do after you're done with purification? Some people like to keep a shake in as part of their increasing their protein intake for the day, or maybe if they're still wanting to lose a little bit of weight, they use that in place of a meal. So some people continue with that. And then it's important when you start to reintroduce things like grains and dairy, that you do it slowly and systematically, right? You put things back in once every 4 days. You see how you feel. So if you've been avoiding eggs, you put eggs back in, and you put eggs in, and then you say, okay, that wasn't so bad. Then you put them back in 4 days later. That wasn't so bad. Okay, well, maybe I can add eggs and it's not an issue. Then you add in oats. Let's say you're an oatmeal person, right? You add in oats. Then you say, okay, I'm going to add them in. And then 4 days later, I'm going to add them in again. And say on the second 4 day, when you add it back in again, you're like going, that kind of gave me a little bit of bloating, or I don't feel so good, or it made me tired, or whatever. So we have to figure out when we're eating, how do we feel as a result of that? And pay more attention to how does food affect us, right? When you start adding back in sugar, refined sugar, if you do, which I wouldn't recommend, but on occasion, pay attention to how it makes you feel. Right. So I had a kid come in this evening, and he's this kind of bodybuilder, kind of guy, but he went to a friendsgiving last night and ate cheesecake and pie and stuff that he doesn't normally eat. So on his Zytoscan today, his pancreas came up. I go, what have you been eating? Because it never comes up. He says, oh, I ate a bunch of sugar last night. That's why I felt like, he says, I felt like crap this morning when I woke up. I'm like, yep, that's what's going to happen to someone when you don't eat this stuff. And then you eat it, you're like, you can really pay attention. So when you're doing a 21-day cleanse, and you've been removing these things from your diet and your lifestyle, and then you put them back in, you really can tell how it makes you feel. But when you're putting it in all the time, you really can't tell, because you just feel crummy all the time. So it's nice to give yourself a vacation from foods. And 3 weeks is not that long, right? 3 weeks is not a very long time when you consider the whole year that we have. 3 weeks is a very short period of time.
Right.
Any other questions?
I'm looking forward to this year, Virginia. Last year I didn't really utilize the book to write everything that I did digitally, and I think that's going to make a difference. So this year I'm gonna write it out in the booklet.
Great idea.
I think that's going to make a difference for me. I'm looking forward to doing this again.
Awesome. Okay, Rochelle, come on in.
Hey guys, if you haven't met me, I'm Rochelle. I'm Virginia's daughter. I help her out when she sees patients in Chico and take care of all her social media and stuff like that.
Thank God.
So a couple of awesome things that we are offering as part of the program. We're doing 10% off for the full program. So that includes 2 canisters of protein powder, 2 whole food fibers, SP Cleanse, SP Green Food, shaker bottle, your little booklet, and then your free digital recipe book. So that's all included together, 10% off if you buy before December 1st. Technically before Thanksgiving, because we're closed for a couple days. So if you are ready to do that now, I can just, make a note of your name, and then I can have Jess call and make sure that she's got your address to send it to you, or if you're in this area, you can stop by and pick it up. We're going to have some kits all put together. The other thing that we're doing is we're going to do several Facebook Lives where we'll answer people's questions and talk about more stuff. So I think the first one, since we're starting in December, the first one is like December 3rd. I think that's a Tuesday, Wednesday. whatever that first Wednesday in December is. I'll have to look. So if you're not following us on Facebook, you totally should. We'll do Facebook Lives, talk about stuff that relates to the Purification Program, whether that's what we've eaten this week or
We might
getting
share
us prepared,
recipes.
getting us prepared for that post-purification that Dr. Virginia kind of talked about, like what is she going to start to reintroduce and when, what that looks like, answer questions. All of those videos then end up on Facebook and Instagram. So if you can't check them out live, you can always watch them afterwards. And then Mom and I talked about the fact that this is a great time to do purification because, like she said, sometimes people will lose a little bit of weight, but it's a great thing to start to detox, to start to get those toxins out of our fat so that if people have that weight loss goal at the beginning of the year, they can join us for our very strict but very successful HCG program at the beginning of the year that we're going to be running. So if weight loss is your goal, this is a great first step. Get rid of some of those toxins. And then if you're looking for more weight loss, we're going to do a program in January that's very specifically focused on that.
Awesome.
Weight loss.
So I would encourage you between now and Thanksgiving to get some things out of your house that need to be gotten rid of, right?
Right.
Go through the pantry, put the stuff in the freezer, or if you're never going to eat it again, give it to somebody else, you know, donate it to the food banks, you know, stuff that shouldn't be in your house, perhaps. If it's there, you know, look for a way to clean it out so you're not tempted. Temptation is a big thing, you know, and if it's not in the house, I ask people, I'm like, well, who's buying this crap? Like, well, I do. I said, so go to the grocery store with a list. And that's the other thing too. I will encourage you to kind of create a little menu for yourself, right? Have a plan. So know what you're going to eat before you're looking in the fridge,
Right.
right? So spend a little bit of time and plan the first week's menu. If the first week's menu works for you, you can just repeat it, right? So that you've got variety, you're planning variety into, and use the local seasonal vegetables right now, right? Use the seasonal things that are fresh and farmer's market if you've got one near you. So, and then remember, we're trying to cook everything. So you're going to have to plan a little bit more for mealtime, but I would encourage you to make a big pot of soup. When we start, we make a big pot of soup and then we put our protein in later, right? We make the foundation of the soup, the bone broth. I would encourage you also, if you're going to make soup, use bone broth. It's got more protein. It's more nutritious, super good for you. So make a big pot of soup and then add your protein later. You can add lentils to it. You could add chicken to it, not the same meal necessarily, but you know, you could portion out the broth part and the vegetables and then add your protein to it. So you've got kind of a different meal each day. That's one of the main things that we do. And then you can also, if you get creative, you could make some like keto bread. If you're like really craving bread, you know, you could get some keto recipes out with the, not with almond flour though, because we're not doing nuts, but some of them use like coconut flour, right?
Okay.
So you could get a little creative and get some things. And we'll also, like, I think you can do chia seed pudding. We talked about that. Oh, kale chips. If you've never made kale chips, it's the bomb on cleanse. We usually, Rochelle and I will eat the whole tray by ourselves.
Yes, I have pictures.
Yes. We'll eat the whole tray by ourselves.
Yes.
And it's a great way to get some extra veggies in.
Perfect.
Right? So don't be afraid to, you know, experiment with some stuff. When you get the online cookbook, it'll have a bunch of recipes in the back there. So there's like a zucchini hummus. So
Yeah.
there's like a zucchini hummus that you can make and use your spices, you know, so get creative, use your spices. It doesn't have to be bland. It doesn't have to be, you know, tortuous. Torture is optional.
All right, I think we're gonna let everybody go, but I just want to check and see if anybody's interested so I can put kits aside and get started on that. Lisa, you said you wanted to do it?
I am interested.
Okay. Is that Cindy?
Yes, I'm interested. I just have a question. I'm on such a program already with you and I've got a lot of pills. Should I finish that before I start the 3-week
No, just
detox?
take your supplements up until
Okay,
the start of the cleanse, and then you and I will talk, and
okay,
I'll tell you what you can stay on and what you don't need to.
okay. Sounds good.
So that applies to me as well, right?
Yes,
And me.
yes. Yeah, what I usually do on when we get to the 21 day is I will just keep a few things in your protocol.
Okay.
So we update.
So we need 2 then?
For 2 of us, would that
Yes.
be 2 kids?
Yes.
Oh, that's gonna be good for you,
Awesome.
Trevor.
Yeah.
Have you done the cleanse before?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. And then Cindy, I'm sorry, what was your last name, hun?
It's MINICKHARDER.
Okay, awesome. So-
Okay, guys, we're going to, are we gonna be doing any email stuff or just the Facebook Live?
I will probably do some email stuff.
Yeah,
Perfect.
So I'll send you guys emails throughout with some tips and tricks and stuff like that. And we'll have the Facebook Lives.
maybe
Of
new
course.
recipes we try.
Of course, you can always text Dr. Virginia if you have questions. But if you're not following us on Facebook and Instagram, you totally should, because we're going to post a lot of stuff, as we do it. Just like, oh, here's dinner on Instagram, with the recipe or whatever that is.
Awesome.
So we'll be doing that kind of in the moment as we go. I will have the staff reach out to all of you in the morning to figure out if you want to pick these up or if we need to ship them to you, since I don't know where you guys are.
Okay,
So I'll have the staff call you guys in the morning and get these taken care of.
great. Thank you.
Awesome.
I will pick it up if that's easier. You can make hours to pick up.
Okay,
So we
Okay.
don't have to involve more people.
that sounds great. Cindy, I'll mail yours to you, Cindy.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
absolutely.
Thanks, you guys, for attending.
It was fun.
Thank you. This
Thank
was awesome.
you
And
so
I
much.
think if you have friends and family who you think might be interested, it's not too late. They
Sure.
can watch this video. I can send it to them. You can forward it to them. They can call in and get a kit as well. So it's 10% off for everybody up until Thanksgiving. So if they want to get started, share it around. We're happy to have more people.
Great. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. Good
Thank
night,
you.
guys.
This was awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.